Friends, we have had two visitors to our railway. One of these, City of Truro, is a very famous engine. We were very sorry when we had to say goodbye to him. The other visitor was different. I do not believe, writes the Fact Controller, that all diesels are troublesome, but this one upset our engines and made Doug very unhappy. The author.
It was an important day in the yard. Everyone was busy and excited, making notes and taking photographs. A special visitor had arrived and was now the center of attention.
"Who is that?" whispered Thomas to Duck. "That," said Duck proudly, "is a celebrity."
"A what?" asked Percy. "A celebrity is a very famous engine," replied Duck. "Driver says we can talk to him soon." "Oh," said Thomas, "he's probably too famous to even notice us."
Just then Gordon arrived.
"Huh," said Gordon. "Who cares? A lot of fuss about nothing, if you ask me."
And he steamed away.
Later that night, the engines found that the visitor wasn't conceited at all. He enjoyed talking to the other engines till long after the stars came out. He left early next morning. Gordon was still complaining. "Good riddance," he grumbled, "chattering all night. Who is he anyway?" "Duck told you," replied Thomas. "He's famous." "As famous as me? Nonsense. He's famouser than you. He went 100 miles an hour before you were even thought of." "Huh, so he says," huffed Gordon, "but I didn't like his looks. He's got no dome. Never trust domeless engines. They're not respectable. I never boast, but I'd say 100 miles an hour would be easy for me. Goodbye." Duck took some freight cars to Edward's station. "Hello," called Edward. "That famous engine came through this morning. He whistled to me. Wasn't he kind?" "He's the finest engine in the world," replied Duck. Then he told Edward what Gordon had said. "Take no notice," soothed Edward. "He's just jealous. He thinks no engine should be famous but him. Look, he's coming now." Gordon was running very fast. His wheels pounded the rails. "He did it, I'll do it. He did it, I'll do it." Gordon's train rocketed past and was gone. "He'll knock himself to bits," chuckled Duck. Gordon's driver eased him off. "Steady, Gordon. We aren't running a race." "We are then," said Gordon, but he said it to himself. Suddenly, Gordon began to feel a little strange. "The top of my boiler seems funny," he thought. "It feels as if something is loose. I'd better go slower." But it was too late. On the viaduct, they met the wind. It was a teasing wind which blew suddenly in hard puffs. Gordon thought it wanted to push him off the grid. "No, you don't," he said firmly. But the wind had other ideas. It curled round his boiler, crept under his loose dome, and lifted it off and away into the valley below. Gordon was most uncomfortable. The cold wind was whistling through the hole where his dome should be, and he felt silly without it. At the big station, the freight cars laughed at him. Gordon tried to wish them away, but they crowded round no matter what he did. On the way back to the shed, he wanted his driver to stop and fetch his dome. We'll never find it now, said the driver. You'll have to go to the works for a new one. Gordon was very cross. I hope the shed is empty tonight, he huffed to himself. But all the engines were there waiting. Never trust domeless engines, said a voice from somewhere behind him. They aren't respectable.
Duck is very proud of being Great Western. He talks endlessly about it. But he works hard too and makes everything go like clockwork. It was a splendid day. The cars and coaches behaved well. The passengers even stopped grumbling. But the engines didn't like having to bustle about. There are two ways of doing things, Duck told them. The Great Western way or the wrong way. I'm Great Western and don't we know it? The engines were glad when a visitor came. He purred smoothly towards them. Sir Topham had introduced him. Here is Diesel. I have agreed to give him a trial. He needs to learn. Please teach him, Duck. Good morning, purred Diesel in an oily voice. Pleased to meet you, Duck. Is that James and Henry and Gordon too? I am delighted to meet such famous engines. The silly engines were flattered. He has very good manners, they murmured. We are pleased to have him in our yard. Duck had his doubts. Come on, he said. Diesel purred after him. You're worthy, Topham. Sir Topham hat to you, ordered Duck. Diesel looked hurt. Your worthy Sir Topham Hatt thinks I need to learn. He is mistaken. We Diesels don't need to learn. We know everything. We come to a yard and improve it. We are revolutionary. Oh, said Duck, if you're Rever-Thingamy, perhaps you would collect my cars while I fetch Gordon's coaches. Diesel, delighted to show off, purred away. When Duck returned, Diesel was trying to take some cars from a siding. They were old and empty. They have not been touched for a long time. Diesel found them hard to move. Pull, push, backwards, forwards, holy, holy. The cars groan. We can't. We won't. Duck watched with interest. Diesel lost patience. He roared and gave a great heave. The cars jerked forward. Oh, oh! They screamed. We can't. We won't. Some of their brakes snapped and the gear jammed in the sleepers. Chuckled Duck. Diesel recovered and tried to push the cars back, but they wouldn't move. Duck ran quietly round to collect the other cars. Thank you for arranging these, Diesel. I must go now. Don't you want this lot? No, thank you. Diesel gulped. And I've taken all this trouble. Why didn't you tell me? You never asked me. Besides, said Duck, you were having such fun being Rev whatever it was you said. Goodbye. Diesel had to help the workmen clear the mess. He hated it. All the cars were laughing and singing at him. Cars waiting in the yard, tackling them with ease. Show the world what I can do, gaily boasts the Diesel. In and out he creeps about like a big black weasel. When he pulls the wrong cars out, up goes the Diesel. growled Diesel and scuttled away to sulk in the shed. Diesel, the new engine, was sulking. The freight cars would not stop singing rudely at him. Duck was horrified. "Shut up!" he ordered and bumped them hard. "I'm sorry our cars were rude to you, Diesel." Diesel was still furious. "It's all your fault. You made them laugh at me." "Nonsense," said Henry. "Duck would never do that. We engines have our differences, but we never talk about them to the cars. That would be disgraceful," said Gordon. "Disgusting," put in James. "Despicable," finished Henry. Diesel hated Duck. He wanted him to be sent away, so he made a plan. He was going to tell lies about Duck. Next day, he spoke to the cars. "I see you like jokes. You made a good joke about me yesterday. I laughed and laughed. Duck told me one about Gordon. I'll whisper it." "Don't tell Gordon I told you," and he sniggered away. "Ho, ho, ho," guffawed the cars. "Gordon will be cross with Duck when he knows. Let's tell him and get back at Duck for bumping us." They laughed rudely at the engines as they went by. Soon Gordon, Henry, and James found out why. "Disgraceful," said Gordon. "Disgusting," said James. "Despicable," said Henry. "We cannot allow it." They consulted together. "Yes," they said. "He did it to us. We'll do it to him and see how he likes it." Duck was tired out. The cars had been cheeky and troublesome. He wanted a rest in the shed. The three engines barred his way. "Keep out." "Stop fooling," said Duck. "I'm tired." "So are we," hissed the engines. "We are tired of you. We like Diesel. We don't like you. You tell tales about us to the cars." "I don't." "You do." "I don't." "You do." Sir Topham Hatt came to stop the noise. "Duck called me a galloping sausage," spluttered Gordon. "Rusty red scrap iron," hissed James. "I'm old Square Wheels," fumed Henry. "Well, Duck?" Duck considered. "I only wish, sir," he said gravely, "that I'd thought of those names myself. If the dome fits..." "He made cars laugh at us," accused the engines. Sir Topham Hatt recovered. He'd been trying not to laugh himself. "Did you, Duck?" "Certainly not, sir. No steam engine would be as mean as that." Diesel lurked up. "Now, Diesel, you heard what Duck said." "I can't understand it, sir. To think that Duck of all engines. I am dreadfully grieved, sir, but know nothing." "I see," said Sir Topham Hatt. Diesel squirmed and hoped he didn't. "I'm sorry, Duck, but you must go to Edward's station for a while. I know he will be glad to see you." "As you wish, sir." Duck trundled sadly away, while Diesel smirked with triumph. Duck, the Great Western engine, puffed sadly to Edward's station. "It's not fair," he complained. Diesel has been telling lies about me and made Sir Topham Hatt and all the engines think I'm horrid. Edward smiled. I know you aren't, and so does Sir Topham Hatt. You wait and see. Why don't you help me with these cars? Duck felt happier with Edward and set to work at once. The cars were silly, heavy and noisy. The two engines had to work hard, pushing and pulling all afternoon. At last they reached the top of the hill. Goodbye, whistled Duck, and rolled gently over the crossing to the other line. Duck loved coasting down the hill, running easily with the wind whistling past. Suddenly, it was the conductor's warning whistle. Hurrah, 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 laughed the cars. We've broken away, we've broken away. Chase him, bump him, throw him off the rails, they yelled. Hurry, Duck, hurry, said the driver. They raced through Edward Station, but the cars were catching up. As fast as we can, then they'll catch us gradually. The driver was gaining control. Another clear mile and we'll do it. Oh, glory, look at that! James was just pulling out on their line from the station ahead. Any minute there could be a crash. It's up to you now, Duck, cried the driver. Duck put every ounce of weight and steam against the cars. It's too late, Duck groaned and shut his eyes. He veered into a siding where a barber had set up shop. He was shaving a customer. The silly cars had knocked their conductor off his van and left him far behind after he had whistled a warning. But the cars didn't care. They were feeling very pleased with themselves. Beg pardon, sir, gasped Duck. Excuse my intrusion. No, I won't, said the barber. You frighten my customers. I'll teach you. And he lathered Duck's face all over. Poor Duck. Thomas was helping to pull the cars away when Sir Topham Hatt arrived. I do not like engines popping through my walls, fumed the barber. I appreciate your feelings, said Sir Topham Hatt, but you must know that this engine and his crew have prevented a serious accident. It was a very close, shave. Oh, said the barber. Oh, excuse me. He filled a basin of water to wash Duck's face. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were being a brave engine. That's all right, sir. I didn't know that either. You were very brave indeed, said Sir Topham Hatt. I'm proud of you. Sir Topham Hatt watched the rescue operation. Then he had more news for Duck. And when you are properly washed and mended, you are coming home. Home, sir? Do you mean the yard? Of course. But, sir, they don't like me. They like Diesel. Not now. I never believed Diesel, so I sent him packing. The engines are sorry and want you back. A few days later, when he came home, there was a really rousing welcome for Duck the Great Western Engine.